This is the problem with Democrats. You can be weird or you can be pretentious, but you can't be both. And Democrats are weird and pretentious. When you have some things that aren't really common sense, Latinx.
Why aren't you listening to Latinos? Latinos were the main people saying don't use Latinx.
Because they don't care.
So comedian Andrew Schulz wrecks the Democrat Party so badly that even Charlamagne the God, one of the most liberal people in media, is agreeing with him. That's how brutal the truth bombs were. I mean, he gives them a vicious tongue lashing that does not stop. He goes in and in on them for being weird and pretentious and condescending. And I'm gonna show you guys all of it. So make sure you watch till the end because this is awesome. But before we get into the video, make sure you guys hit the like button. I really, really appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already and turn on the notification bells so you never miss a video. But now let's get into this. So Andrew Schulz is a stand-up comedian, but he's also the host of an incredibly popular podcast called Flagrant. He actually had Donald Trump on his podcast. It's a really good conversation if you haven't seen it. But he also has another podcast called Brilliant Idiots with Charlamagne the God. And they were just talking about everything wrong with the Democrat Party, and they were just spot on the head with every single point. And you know it was bad if Charlamagne, who is notorious for being a race baiter, one of the more liberal people in media, horrible take aficionado, was agreeing with everything that Andrew Schulz was saying. So here he is with the first of many brutal takedowns, calling Democrats weird and pretentious. Watch.
This is the problem with Democrats. You can be weird or you can be pretentious, but you can't be both. And Democrats are weird and pretentious, right? Like a good example, we were talking about this on Flagrant. Remember that stupid haircut I had? If somebody came up to me like, why do you have the haircut? And I was like, what, do you not understand fashion? Do you not understand luxury? What are you, a Nazi? Like, how dare you judge his haircut? People would be like, shut the up, bro. You got a weird haircut. Stop acting like, and that's Democrats. If you disagree with Democrat rhetoric, some of it, not all of it, some of the rhetoric, the extreme rhetoric, the reaction is, what are you, a Nazi? What are you, hateful? What are you, a bigot?
And that's why people started to hate all of the DEI, wokeness, political correctness, because every American who just simply had a question was getting insulted and being labeled as a bigot or hateful. Most people are open-minded to new ideas, but it is incumbent upon you to be able to articulate those and convince people through reason and logic why your position is correct. The problem with the Democrats is they made all of these radical cultural changes and then just threatened people with shame and insults if they disagreed. You can't tell me that a man can become a woman and therefore a man who thinks that he's a woman should be able to go in women's bathrooms, play in their sports, be in their lockers, be in their private spaces. And then when I simply ask you, wait, that doesn't really make sense to me, can you explain what you mean? Transphobic. And as we see every time we watch The View, they always use an elitist explanation as to why people don't agree with Democrats. It's always, oh, it's the uneducated people who voted for Trump, implying that they're more sophisticated, they're more educated, they're more insightful and enlightened and wise, and we're just too stupid to understand, and therefore we're just hateful. That's the pretentious part that he's talking about. So yeah, he's right. You can't be weird and pretentious and expect people to rally behind you in support. Now, him and Charlamagne absolutely go in on the woke left for their idiotic gender identity stance. Watch.
Remember when there was like these stories of like the drag queens teaching teaching kids how to read?
Yes.
And if a dad or mom goes, yo, why are there drag queens teaching kids how to read?
Don't call me homophobic,
transphobic,
because of that shit.
Explain that shit. It's weird. It's not like we ain't all go to kindergarten.
And that's what I was saying just a second ago. You can't shove your wildly radical, non-scientific, anti-reality worldview down everybody's throats forcibly, and then when we simply ask a question about it, we get shut down and labeled transphobic or a bigot and canceled. People are getting their kids taken away, people are getting fired from work, all because they don't use the appropriate pronouns. And if not to illustrate Andrew's point exactly, his liberal producer interrupts and does the exact same thing that lost the Democrats the election. He tells him what he's concerned about isn't actually a concern. And Andrew tells him this is why Trump got elected, because your party is full of people with this same stupid attitude. Watch.
And maybe this makes me pretentious. Maybe it makes me elitist. I just don't think it really... Look, I just talk...
No, Chris, I want you to finish what you're about to say. You don't think it what?
Impacts people's lives in a real way.
But it impacted the election.
Okay.
Even if it don't impact your life, it impacted the election.
When you say it doesn't impact people's lives, may I finish?
It doesn't.
May I finish?
Yeah.
If you just double down. What you're telling me, this is the messaging I get, right?
Right.
I'm telling you, this is a deal to me. And what you're telling me is that I'm weird. This is the pretentiousness that is so baked into Democratic politics that drives people crazy. I'm telling you, hey, I don't understand this and it makes me feel a little uncomfortable. And you're going, no one really cares about this. This is not a big deal.
Right.
What does you care about
It's like shut up and dribble.
Shut your mouth and dribble.
What you mean?
And
Because I'm asking questions?
And the second you do that to the majority of the country, which is what you're doing, they start going, man, fuck these guys. Trump, fix this whole shit. These motherfuckers went too far. I can't even ask a question. When I do, they act like I'm stupid.
He is 1,000% right. And that is why you saw Trump gain massively in all the blue states, in all the red states, in all the blue cities, amongst all demographic groups. Because people were fed up with being told that they had to think a certain way, had to speak a certain way, that their elementary school kids had to be talked to and indoctrinated by adults about gender and sexual identity, and the parents had no say in it, and if they even questioned it, then they were the transphobic homophobes. They voted for somebody who was going to push back against this nonsense with absolutely no remorse, and who was talking to them about the problems that they faced economically and with the border, and not just telling them that they're crazy and that these issues don't even exist and things are actually so good. Just look at the stats and the studies. But here is Charlamagne openly admitting that even him and his friends do not understand this woke, transgender, gender identity nonsense. This is hilarious. Watch.
My daughter's a competitive cheerleader, so we always end up in these obscure places all around the country. We're at dinner. The kids are at one table, all the adults are at another table. It is the most diverse table. We look like the fucking United Nations. It's like me and my wife, a black couple, it's an Indian couple, it's a Muslim couple, it's white couples, it's Jewish couples. Like we're just all sitting there eating, drinking, whatever. And somebody gets on the topic of furries. But then furries turned into a whole conversation about just gender identity and everything else. Chris, every single person at the table does not understand it. They think it's strange.
That's cool.
It's not nobody being transphobic.
That's cool.
They just don't understand. They want to know why is this just being pushed on kids. Like they want to know. Like they're trying to figure. They don't want the teachers talking to their kids about it.
It's not even like he's saying anything profound. It is just common sense stuff. And the Democrat Party just abandoned all common sense. Regular, everyday people, reasonable people did not agree with their far left radical agenda. And I think that most people, for the most part, were kind of okay with it as it was isolated to adults. It's when they started focusing on kids that everybody rejected this profusely. I don't care how tolerant you are going to have a problem with your child's teacher talking to them about sex and sexuality and gender identity and trying to encourage your little boy or little girl that they're actually the opposite gender stuck in the wrong body. But just on cue, his leftist producer jumps back in with his straight out of the Democrat Party playbook response, saying, why is this important to you? This shouldn't be important to you. Just focus on something else. This isn't even really an issue. And Andrew destroys him. Watch.
No, I'm saying focus on something else.
No, you should say that to the politicians.
How pretentious is that? How unbearably pretentious is that?
Listen.
Somebody's knocking on your ceiling, right? Yeah. You live on the third floor. The fourth floor person is tap dancing on your ceiling. And then you go, hey, man, that's a little bit bothersome. And they go, it's not a big deal to most people. Just get over it. Most people don't really care.
But you know what's so crazy, Schulz?
They care.
If the voters tell you that their problems are A, B, and C, and your response is, nah, those aren't problems. The problems you should care about are X, Y, and Z, you are going to lose. And that is exactly what the Democrat Party did. Now he continues and talks about the Democrat Party's incessant need to virtue signal. Watch.
When you have some things that aren't really common sense, latinx, when you have some things that are just...
They sacrificed it all at the altar of identity.
But why aren't you listening to
Exactly.
Latinos?
But
Latinos were the main people saying don't use Latinx.
because they don't care.
You even keep saying Latinx. I never even heard that term.
I know. It's just...
I hate to admit this, but Charlamagne said it perfectly. They didn't ask or even consider what the Hispanic culture wanted. They just gave them a new term that they never asked for, that's not part of their language, and said, here, we as white liberals say this is more inclusive and this is the way that we're going to address you from now on. And like Schulz said, they don't care that the Latino community never asked for Latinx. That's the pretentiousness that he's alluding to. They think they know better. They think they're smarter. And so therefore, they're going to implement what they want because they don't care what a whole bunch of non-college educated people have to say. And that's why they lost the election. Because while everybody was saying the economy's bad and they're struggling, they sat there and pointed their nose down at you and said, well, actually, Goldman Sachs and these world-renowned economists all say it's doing well, so you're wrong. Now, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. I know I absolutely loved that brutal takedown of the Democrat Party. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you have not already and turn on those notification bells so you never miss a video. And I will see you guys in the next one.